Welcome everybody to the Realberg Experience, podcast for creative individuals from all walks of life. We talking to rap stars, politicians, photographers, you name it. Maintain and entertain, I bet the show gon' get famous. So go and take a seat and let the people get to meet the innovative individual that you will be. Let's go. Welcome everybody to the Realberg Experience, a podcast for creative individuals from all walks of life. I'm your host, DP, and today we welcome a special guest. He is known around town, a native on the island, Key West come for sure. One of my good friends, I've known him for a long time, man, coming from the Benson family. One of the greatest electrical companies to ever be in Key West. But today he's here to inform us about a very important situation. As I look at my ballot here, one of the things on here is about the cruise ship referendum. Everybody's talking about the cruise ship referendum. Now, my good friend is here today to explain us more about what's going on with it and to actually help us understand. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome my good friend, Jolly Benson. How you doing today, Jolly?
Real good, man. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure, man. I'm looking forward to an interesting conversation, man. I didn't even know you had all of this up here, man. Jolly's been here already for about a half hour, man. And man, should have been recording all of that, man, because everything that he said has been very, very.
There's a lot to unpack in this whole situation, yeah.
So, let's talk about it, man. The cruise ship. First of all, what do you have to do with this cruise ship? Right?
I am with a group that organized the efforts to get these on the ballot. So we've been discussing this since, the beginning of the year, give or take. And I go back even further with advocacy in this area. In 2013, there was a whole discussion about whether to dredge the channel to accommodate even bigger ships. And that lost by 74%. I was on the side that said we don't need to destroy our ecosystem to accommodate even larger ships. And we got together sometime around, I want to say February, March, when the pandemic was really starting to take hold. And a couple of friends of mine and my brother, they're all locals too. And we realized that these cruise ships were presenting a risk to our community that was outweighing any of the benefits that we're getting. And that set us in motion to introduce these measures so that Key West would have a better opportunity to regulate how we deal with cruise ships.
So, what are some of the things that the cruise ships were doing to the ecosystem?
Well, we know that they're big ships. They're considered small in the industry because they just have a scale I can't even fathom. But we know that they're kicking up silt every time they come in from the reef. Silt is that fine mud on the bottom. You can see it on a ship, on a picture of a cruise ship. It's that white plume that's coming behind a ship, and they do that for the whole trip from the reef to the harbor. And when they're turning around in the harbor, those big propellers that they have are sometimes a foot off the bottom and just kicking up all of that silt. And scientific reports have a very unscientific describer of this. They say it looks like a blasted moonscape under our harbor here. So if you had been around any amount of time, when we were kids, the harbor was really full of fish and really vibrant thing, and you could catch dinner right off there.
You could jump in.
Right.
Yeah, it was full of.
And we haven't seen that type of vibrant ecosystem in quite some time, and the cruise ships are pretty much directly responsible for that. So just the size of them alone coming through our fragile ecosystem is too much. We'd like to see a smaller draft that's not 6 inches off the bottom or a foot, more like 8 feet, 9 feet off the bottom. Gives enough room to, not kick up all this silt. We'd like to see less people disembarking downtown all at once. I didn't know this personally, but a guy on the radio who's on the opposite side from this argument says 18 days last year, we got over 10,000 people in one day on a cruise ship.
Wow.
One time, all disembarking within an hour. Right? So 10,000 people on airplanes that take 4 days to unload. So it's just an overwhelming mass of people that tax our system, not the least of which is, public restrooms. We're really understaffed when it comes to infrastructure to handle that amount of people.
So I know one of the big things that they'll say is, 10,000 people, how much money does that accumulate when they disembark in Key West.
Right.
You know, that's going to leave a huge gap. Do you believe so?
There's two components to that. There's the fee that they pay the city to get off the ship. That's whether they buy anything or do whatever, right? That's a head tax, if you will. For stopping here, they pay $10.50 or something. Most of these ships go to a privately operated cruise pier, which takes 75%. So the city of Key West gets $250 from that ship disembarkation. They get the full amount from Mallory Square, and they get about half from the Outer Mole Pier. So that's just a tax that the city can use to keep up the infrastructure related to cruise ships. It's a zero-sum game. The spending from cruise ship passengers is estimated at $88 million, which sounds like an awful lot until you compare it to the over $1 billion we get from non-cruise passengers. Now, they're the same amount of people. So the city of Key West gets about 1 million people on cruise ships, 950,000 to 1 million. And we get about 1.1 million via planes, cars, ferry, hitchhikers, whatever.
You saying that this amount accumulates a tenth
right.
of this amount?
Right. So we have 50% of the passengers by other means, planes and trains and stuff. 50% come by cruise ships. The side that does not come from cruise ships spends 92% of our dollars, and the side that comes from cruise ships spends 8%. And so that disparity there is something that we're trying to address. We're trying to make it so that it's not just 8%, if you will, for the impact that we're getting, the amount of people that we're getting, the revenue return is not great.
Is there any do you see any way to generate the little 8%?
Sure. Yeah.
What ideas do you have for that?
So these 3 referenda, I think I'll just go over them real quick.
Let's get into the referendums. The first one, let me, because
go ahead and read it.
I'm proud to have them on my ballot here. The first one, limiting persons disembarking from cruise ships to a total of 1,500 persons per day. What is that one about? Let's talk about it.
All right, so that one just says total number of people coming off any amount of cruise ships can be 1,500 or less. So
it's combined.
Right. So theoretically, we could have one ship at 1,200 people. We could have another ship at 200 people. We could have 3 ships at 500 people. We could have 2 at 750. It's any combination of cruise ships that would allow a total of 1,500 people.
How many do we have disembarking now?
Up to 10,000.
Up to 10,000, like you just said.
Sometimes more. So we average, I'll take February because it's the shortest month and it's easiest for me to do the math on. So we have, 28 days in February, and we're seeing 46 different port calls. The majority of these, so 40% of them, come from just a few ships. They come weekly, and they're old ships built in the 90s, 1990, 1992, 1999. So they're bringing the oldest ships they can possibly fit in here, and they're not giving us a chance to say, whoa, these are a little bit too big, it's too many calls, it's too much damage to the reef, it's too much. And so this is an opportunity for Key West to say, whoa, we want to say and who's coming and how much we're doing here.
And the next one, prohibiting cruise ships with a capacity of 1,300 or more persons from disembarking. So smaller ships.
Right. So currently the biggest ship that we're expecting in 2021 is a brand new ship. It's called the Celebrity Apex. It's carrying 4,725 people. It's over 1,000 feet long. It's 145 feet wide, 180 feet tall. So that's almost 80 feet taller than the Concha, tallest building in Key West. It's a big boat, right? And so they're going to be bringing that one pretty regularly, and we feel like that's just too big, Not to mention that boat already had an outbreak of COVID before accepting one paying passenger. They had 270 cases in the crew alone.
So was that boat? That was the one that was on the news and whatnot?
It was on the news. It wasn't as widely reported as others, yeah. But so the new boat that they're bringing is just much larger than what we were led to believe could fit in Key West. So we want to say, let's target the new ships that are smaller, say 1,300 people, that's passengers and crew, just still a 600-foot boat. I mean, I don't have a yacht like that. Yeah. So it's not like we're just keeping out everybody but the well-crafts, So it's really what we consider a common sense compromise between the people who are pushing for 0 cruise ships and the people that are pushing for 420 to 450 ships a year.
And then to give priority to cruise lines with the best environmental and health records.
Right. So
that definitely seems like a no-brainer to me.
Right. That's basically like if we get a call from a ship that has, in the recent past, paid a $20 million fine for violating its probation on environmental records, and $40 million before that, so $60 million in the last 2 years. And another ship calls up and says, hey, I want that spot. We would give it to the one that has paid the least amount of fines according to the CDC and the Environmental Protection Agency. So it just gives us a competitive edge in that particular arena to prioritize the ones with the best environmental records.
So, like, what do you think is the biggest issue would be, like, the money that the cruise ships actually bring in, right?
Sure. The biggest question that we have in all of this stuff is about jobs and the economic impact of these cruise ships. And I personally, after looking at the data, understand that we're dealing with an 8% of our total spending here that we're trying to adjust in some way. And I don't say adjust like the amount. I think we can make up that revenue. We're just adjusting how we're getting to that point. And yeah, and again, that's sort of why now is the perfect time for this, because we're in a pandemic. All of these businesses that directly depend on the cruise ships that we get are at a pause now. And when the pandemic passes, I mean, hopefully this afternoon, we can say like, this is over, we're good, we're back to normal. It doesn't seem to be that way. So we are hopeful that these pass, and then businesses that were doing a pause, when they reopen, will adjust to a new, smaller ship instead of the mass volume of ships that we've been having in the past. It's a good opportunity for any business to, when you reopen, if you're depending on cruise passengers, you want to reopen with certainty. You want to know what's ahead of you so that you can plan for that. And that's sort of why now is a great time. We've had an 8-month pause with no cruise ships.
Yeah.
And while I'm personally a little happy about that because the channel and the harbor are really clear, I'm eager to see these businesses get back to doing what they do, making Key West a great place to visit and live. But we're talking about a visitor experience here.
Yeah. So there you have it. All 3 referendum. I definitely have a better understanding of them now. What else is going on with Jolly Benson, man? Like, how did you get involved into this, man? Like, why does it mean so much to you?
Well, to me, there's no place in the world like Key West. We were talking about this a little bit off camera, but We've traveled all over the place. You go around the world and you just end up looking out at like some beautiful scenery somewhere else. And you're like, I wonder what's going on back home. Yeah. I wonder what Key West is up to. And that'll never leave me. So you just have to embrace it. It's got a hold on you. And once you're involved in that, you just want to make sure that this experience can be passed on to our kids, to our grandkids, if we ever get there, and nieces and nephews, and even people who move down here because they have a dream of changing the way that they were living. Our community is so special, but also so fragile that I felt like I needed to offer my voice and offer the opportunity to people to hear what's going on in our community. And again, that started in 2013 with an effort to save our channel that was quite successful. And now we're seeing, a little bit more of that type of thing. And I feel it's important to put myself out there, and I don't really stand to gain from this. In fact, I'm losing some clients who had hired me before, but it's worth it to me because this community, if we're able to pass it on, is the greatest thing you could ever do in life.
Yeah. So you say you lost some clients.
Sure.
What are those, like business owners?
Yeah, there's some business owners. There's some people who own attractions and stuff. And, we haven't had a formal falling out or anything, but it wouldn't surprise me if they say, I'd rather, when the needs arise, go with somebody else. But I've also had people who are against me on this particular issue say, look, you did good work. Come finish up, come do the thing. And in this town, you really do see a lot of that cross the aisle type of thing. There's one thing that unifies us, and that's the love of Key West, more than the love of some party or politics or whatever. So I feel encouraged that after November we'll be reconciled. But at the moment, I've taken a couple hits.
Yeah. I mean, there might be a conversation that be had there. You know what I mean? Like what can actually be done, like amongst the business owners and the two sides. You know what I mean? Like, maybe the business owners tell like how they feel, and then people just come up with solutions about what can be done and how the money can be made, and how everybody can just kumbaya.
Like, we're gonna get to that point. We're gonna have to talk to these businesses who do have a stake. I don't want to dismiss them as out of hand people who only care about themselves. They also have families, employees, and stuff.
Definitely.
But they need to. The community should understand that we now have an opportunity to adjust and rethink how we're going to be going into the future. This pandemic has really put a pause on the whole island. For months we didn't have a visitor.
Yeah.
So everybody's numbers are down. When we start to build them back up, we can build them back up to a place that's not at the detriment to our nearshore waters and overcrowding issues, health and safety issues. Like there's a lot going on with these cruise ships, and the issues at hand are larger than just what I have to say. There's other voices. So I look forward to working with these business communities to attract the type of ship that we're seeking out and suggesting. And we're going to need them to do that.
Definitely, man. Well, it's become a decision of the people now. So make sure you guys get out and vote. I want to thank Jolly Benson for coming through. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
I think we're pretty good. I'd be happy to come back and clarify if you get any questions or anything like that, man. I'm happy to do a reshoot. I know that we only scratched the surface here.
Yeah. We can dig into it a little more if you want to.
Sure, man. Yeah.
Yeah, just talk about it.
Well, let me ask you this. What are you hearing from people that you know? And because you all over, man,
I hear from the business owners, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I had a friend that works at a ice cream shop who, I know their ice cream shop is taking a direct hit because, they're based right where the cruise ships come in at. Probably Tropical Vibes as well is probably another one that took a big hit. I also know a friend that owns a jewelry store in Duval Street that as well said he took a big hit because these people, they pay enormous amounts of money for the locations that they have, which, I feel like that in part is like part of the issue. But, everybody, I know, like, I say, like, people should just, like, reinvent and, like, never, like, come complacent. Right. I know everybody's not capable, they can't just see.
Well, you've invested your life savings in this business. You've invested your time and energy and effort, and you want to see it succeed at all costs. I get that. But we're up against something that we've never seen before in 100 years,
True.
So, like, I would love for it to go back to normal and have this conversation where we're not in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're here. And when we look at when cruises will be coming back, right? So they say now it's December, but they've been telling their shareholders and real stakeholders that it's realistically March is when things get to come back. And I've known that since July. So
see, Jolly is in it.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to read all of the information, right? And so when I started looking into this, I found from the Bahamas, actually, because they're pretty open, their Ministry of Tourism was saying when cruise ships come back, they won't be getting off the ship and wandering around town. They'll be going on a cruise certified excursion, right?
Yeah.
So here that would mean they get off the ship, they get on a bus or a trolley, they go to an excursion, they come back and they get on the ship. So the small business ice cream owners and jewelry store owners aren't going to see the residual benefits of cruising, and that's for the foreseeable future, 2 to 3 to 4 years.
I've seen that in a few islands. They got it Foulmouth, Jamaica.
Yep.
And this one in Haiti, man. Can't even think. Labadee, yeah. Yeah, as soon as you get off the cruise ship, you get on something, they take you to a certain section, you watch a few shows, back on the boat, out of here.
So in the Bahamas, for example, when they were proposing this, they have what's called the straw market, in Nassau, where these people walk, and it's handicrafts, and it's a real opportunity for locals to make a living. Yeah. And when but when you cut that off and you say these people won't have the option to even go downtown and look at your stuff, that put those people in a really binding position, and there was backlash. Now, they haven't advertised this quite as much here in the U.S. for, I think, obvious reasons. It would be met with negative reactions. They're already doing this in Italy. the cruises that they had come back online, and they in fact kicked a family off a cruise ship for going outside the bubble and getting a little coffee.
Really?
Yeah, they said, grab your bags, we're leaving you right here in this port. So the idea that cruise ships will come back soon and then we'll be spending money like they used to is not addressing the situation here. So I want to like talk to that ice cream owner and say, look, your business is in an awkward position right now, and it's not your fault, but it's also something that you're going to have to deal with. If those big boats come back and all of a sudden those people aren't coming into the community, have we missed our chance to say, look, we're sacrificing something for that ship to come in here? We're saying like our reef isn't quite as important as this money or whatever. I think that conversation should be had amongst small business owners, that the reality is not necessarily that things will go back to exactly how they were. Even if things do go back to having big ships, we're looking at 3 to 4 years before these people can wander around town. That's going to it's going to have to talk about rents and how high they're being pushed because of the location, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And, even things like employees, like keeping a quality employee is hard to do down here.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you don't, just let somebody go with the hopes that you'll find them again, because good luck to you,
Yeah.
So when you have somebody good, you try to like adjust your business to make it so that that person is still employed by you and that you're somehow making money. Well, this is a conversation this community is going to have.
Yeah.
And I hope they do. I'm happy to talk about this with anybody who doesn't spend days and days reading about, financial reports from cruise industries. It's boring, but it's also necessary to have somebody in the community looking out for us in that way, I think. Definitely. And I don't want to say that's my role, but it's something that I'm paying attention to. So the data and the information that's coming, when you put it all together and make it presentable in a short format, is really beneficial to people. And that's outside the vote. Like I encourage you to vote yes on these so that Key West can have some control over how we deal with cruise ships. Right now we have none. But besides that, there's going to be a period of recovery, whether we win or lose at the ballot. And I would love for the community to all be involved in this and say, look, here's our vision for the future. If cruises do come back with big ships or we're attracting smaller ships, we're going to have to get all these people together and come to a consensus at some point. So
who's your opposition, man? All the business owners and whatnot?
So our real opposition, if you guys have been getting mailers and all that stuff every day.
Yeah, man,
saying,
what happened to the Save the Trees and shit, man?
Yeah, right? No.
That's over with.
That's over with.
So many dead trees in my
But these glossies saying the police won't show up and, all of this scaremongering stuff, this is coming from, in political circles, they call it dark money. So it's untraceable donations to a political action committee couched in a company, right? So we know that these mailers are coming from Pasco County, which is in between Orlando and Tampa. It's actually a transient trailer park. Is the registered address for all of these mailers.
Real dark, huh?
Dude, it's dark, but and they're all about confusion and putting out things that might sow some doubt in somebody's mind. Like, well, I don't know, my taxes might go up $11,000 or whatever. It's ridiculous. But so that's the main, the points that are coming out, the talking points, are from those people. Next to them is the cruise lines themselves, who operate through lobbying groups, the biggest of which is the Cruise Line Industry Association. They represent 95% of all cruise ships, and they've been active legally. They've sued us to get it off the ballot, so they don't even want you to decide.
Yeah.
3 lawsuits already, and there's going to be more. And then next to them, the people who are taking those talking points put out by the cruise lines are some local business allies. The big players you'd expect who do most of their business with cruise ships, or a significant portion, trying to frame this about jobs loss and how there's going to be thousands of people out of work and all that stuff. But what they really mean is my profits will take a little hit.
Yeah.
So that's who our opposition is. And there are some local people, but for the most part, it's businesses who are using sometimes their employees. We've got one business going around sending a waiter around to people who support us and signed a petition saying, if you vote yes, I'll lose my job.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's like some North Korea fear-mongering type stuff, You don't send some guy who's just trying to make a living, like, if you don't knock on doors, I'll fire you, and you have to tell people you'll get fired if It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. So there's a whole lot of misinformation coming out, and that's on purpose for them. The less clear the points are, the more likely they are to have people either not vote or decide like, I'm not ready for this right now. So that's it's pretty sizable. We're up against multi-billion-dollar corporations who are not used to being told no, and they're not used to some communities sticking up for themselves, and they're definitely not used to people who are ready to defend themselves in a court of law. So we're ready for all these people. I've been doing my homework, and my organization has been doing our homework, and we're ready for those challenges, but we're also eager to have the backing of our community.
Definitely, man. Well, you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I'm sure somebody's gonna reach out to me and have some more questions, and who knows what this will turn into. Maybe I'll have another person on as well as you.
Sure.
And you guys can have the conversation, and I'll be the third person over here, man. That was coming to me like as you was talking just now.
Yeah, yeah.
Man. But it depends. Who knows what's gonna happen, man. But I just want to thank you for coming through today, Jolly, for giving us like great information. I'm definitely gonna have you on again because we're gonna talk about other stuff.
Oh, dude,
you know what I mean?
we can talk about world topics.
You know what I mean? Like, man,
there's some strange stuff up there, bro.
Conspiracy theories, man, like all the craziness. Like, we definitely gonna have a great topic, man. Because, like, yeah, just conversating with you before this, you know what I mean? Like, it seemed like the conversation could have just kept digging into it more.
Yeah.
And more and uncovering layers, man. I definitely enjoyed it, man. But thank you for coming through today, man.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure, man. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for always watching. I'm DP, Jolly Benson, DP Photography. We out.